In this video, we're going to take a look at adjusting the user work plane and using the ruler. What I'm going to do is just simply add a shape in here on my workspace. And if I wanted to take this cylinder and drop this cylinder on the top of this box, rather than bringing the cylinder in and trying to adjust for the height, what I can do is I can change the work plane to the top of this box so that when I add an object, it's automatically added to that work plane. So how I do that is I come up here and I choose work plane. And now when I come into my object, I can see if I were to move around, I'm snapping into different sides of my object. So if I were to select this top work plane, what you're going to see is I'm now going to have this orange work plane that's going to show up that's now going to be locked into the top. I can also see that I have this blue work plane. This was my original work plane. It keeps this in memory, and I'll show you when we're done here how we actually adjust our work plane back to our original. So now I have this user work plane. So now if I were to drag a cylinder in here, it's actually going to drag it on the work plane that I've adjusted. So now if I wanted to take, and I'm going to align both of those objects up, those two are now adjusted. Let's say I want to add a pyramid to the top of this. I'm going to choose work plane again. I'm going to add the top of that cylinder. So I've now adjusted that work plane. Now if I add a pyramid, it's going to be added to that new work plane. Now if I wanted to align those objects together so that they were all lined up, now I have all of those objects, one stacked on top of the other, without having to move those objects up and down. Using this cone here, it will automatically put it at whatever work plane that I wanted to add it to. It does the same thing for the side. So if I actually wanted to add this rounded roof on this work plane here on the side, rather than having to bring it in and then turn it, if I adjust that work plane here, when I add that rounded roof in, it's now going to be adjusted to that side work plane. It makes adding objects onto other objects much easier by choosing the work plane before I add the objects than it is to try to adjust them and rotate them afterward. Once I have my object created and I'm ready to return to the original work plane, what I can do is choose the work plane button and then just come and select anywhere on my old work plane, and it restores my original work plane to continue to work on. I also have this ruler, and it's much easier if I want to see the size of an object or use this ruler to have the object selected first. That way I know where a corner is. And now when I go ahead and click on that ruler and I drag it in, what I'm able to do is snap into one of those corners, and now I get to see how big that object is and where it's located on that work plane. So that's how I go about making adjustments to my work plane and using my ruler in TinkerCAD.